We're going to talk about how to raise large gifts from older donors, not gifts from large donors today in 2025. Couple of quick housekeeping notes. As Renee asked, we will share the recording and the slides after the fact. This is approved for 1.0 CR credits. We will drop a survey at the end of the session. So if you make it all the way through, fill out that survey at the end of the session, and that will confirm your attendance. If you have any questions, drop them in as we go. I'll keep an eye on those as well. Here's the agenda. Again, we'll send the slides around later today. Quick intros. My name is Patrick, lucky to be the co-founder and co-CEO of FreeWill. You can see us on the left with my wonderful co-founder, Jenny. I asked AI, what are we going to look like when we're older donors? And what you see on the right is AI's best estimate of what we will look like at somewhere between 70 and 75. So there you go. Happy Earth Day, by the way. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. FreeWill is the #1 estate planning and planned giving solution in the United States, trusted by nearly 2,000 leading nonprofits, including Amnesty International, the American Red Cross, Susan G. Komen, the United Way, and many much smaller but still wonderful organizations as well, featured in things like the New York Times and Forbes, as well as other things. We are lucky to be a team of about 200 that has raised almost $12 billion capital B to date for charity. Again, 1,900 nonprofit partners and more than 5 centuries of combined fundraising experience and expertise, because we are all getting older. Recently named one of 2025 most loved workplaces for diversity by the Best Practice Institute. Shout out to the managers on our team for achieving that. Great work, everybody. Last thing before we get started, we love you. We are so grateful you're here. We're so grateful for the work you're doing. And so we are going to send one of my very favorite books to 20 people. Coming back to Oliver Burkeman's second webinar in a row. This book is called 4,000 Weeks. It's Time Management for Mortals. As many of you are thinking, hey, what do I do with my life? This is a great book for that. So make a note in the survey at the end of the session if you'd like a chance to get it. So not now, at the end of the session, and tell us where to send it. All right, so we asked you how your week is going, and we got some good news here. People are really happy. In fact, the happiest they have been in a year, which is great. I mean, thank God for warm weather. What else is going on? I'm curious to know what makes people happier than they've been in a year on average, but generally shout out us. Great job, everybody. Also feeling a lot more bullish right now that we're gonna hit our goals this year. Big rocket back up. I've seen a lot of gifts come in. I've heard a lot of great news about gifts coming in. Hopefully the session we did 2 weeks ago really helped you here, but let's keep moving. We'll make some good progress here and help you be even more successful in hitting your goals. All right, before we get into how to raise money from older donors, again, do yourself a favor at some point, make it, if you're not over 65 or 70 or 75 yet, go get an AI picture of what you will look like then to give yourself a little empathy here. But we're going to dive in and understand who these folks are before we talk about fundraising from them. Seems fair. So category 1, the silent generation. These folks are born between 1928 and 1945. We are mostly not going to talk about the greatest generation, which is even older than this, because the youngest of those folks are 97 right now. So this population is very, very small. They are between 80 and 97 years old in 2025. They're also referred to as at times as matures or traditionalists, but the silent generation tends to be a fan favorite, also considered to be the lucky few. It is a small group of people. We'll talk about that in a moment. By the way, not small because they're old and many folks passed away, small when they were born. So we'll show you that in a second. Less than 5% of the population as of 2023. A fair estimate is more like 3.5% right now. So this is going to be the smaller of the two groups that we discuss. Smaller than preceding generation, meaning smaller than what came before, the greatest generation, and smaller than the one to follow by an enormous margin. Notable members of this generation: Elvis, Muhammad Ali, Dr. Martin Luther King, and Joe Biden. Crazy to think that Joe Biden is the same generation as Elvis and King, and yet he was. Sort of makes you wonder what Martin Luther King would have achieved if he had been alive until 90. Category 2, baby boomers. There may be some baby boomers on the call. There are likely to be relatively few silent folks on the call. Born 1946 to 1964, between 61 and 79 years old in 2025. Notable boomers: Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, Steve Jobs, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. The 65 plus generation grew by 34% during the past decade, according to the 2020 census. Now it's grown even more, 52 million. So this is becoming an incredibly important part of not only fundraising, but life in the United States and around the world. Some of you, by the way, are not in the United States. I will tell you that these numbers are roughly true for Canada, for Australia, and for Western Europe. Asia, on average, tends to be a lot younger. Africa tends to be a lot younger. But you're starting to see some of this show up, certainly in China, and Japan has some of the same challenges as well. Okay, let's take a look at this. So this is really interesting. You can look at fertility rates going up and down. We talk about silence being relatively few. That area of the Great Depression, a lot fewer kids were being born compared to the roaring 20s when things were a little bit better and we were feeling more bullish on having big families. Then we go through the Great Depression and World War II. A lot of heterosexual couples are separated during World War II. So we're not having a lot of babies then. 1945, the war ends. 1946, babies are born. They take 9 months. You should know that. And then you have an enormous population surge all the way into 1964, drops off a cliff with Gen X. Gen X is smaller, right? So you see a lot of that as we go into the energy crisis and the recessions of the 70s. Just to give you a sense here, I mean, these numbers are really drastic. When we talk about baby boom, it's not just the name, it's wow, that's a lot of babies, right? The baby boom. Look at the generation before boomers, 47 million. Almost 30 million more people were born in the generation after in boomers. And then look at Gen X, quite small, 20 million fewer than boomers. And this is really big gaps. It's why understanding older donors is so important, because we love our Gen X folks, and there are simply not enough of them to fill the shoes of boomers when it comes to making up all those donations. All right, before we dive in more, I would love a bunch of folks say, yay, Gen X. We love our Gen Xers, a lot of great. At some point soon, we will do a whole session on Gen X as donors. But first, a framework, which some of you may have heard before, but we want to think less about groups as donors, less by age and more by generation. So consider the difference between playing bridge and having knee problems. When I was growing up, my grandparents in the great state of Rhode Island, lovely French Canadian people, played a lot of bridge. And my understanding was that old people played bridge. And then later in life, I realized that they were playing bridge when they were in their teens, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And it is not the fact that old people play bridge. It is the fact that people born in a certain set of decades played bridge their whole life. Something like having knee problems is much more a factor of being old, right? So folks who are older have knee problems regardless of the year they were born in. People who play bridge, it's dependent on the year they were born. And so as we think about this, don't think about older donors who are like X. Think about silent generation donors who are like X, boomers are like X, millennials are like Y, Gen Z is like Z. So hopefully that's fair and gives you a sense of that. All right, let's talk about this. Silent and baby boomers are more religious than subsequent generations. Fewer than 1 in 5 baby boomers are religiously unaffiliated. Fewer than 1 in 11 silents are religiously unaffiliated, compared to 29% of millennials and 34% of Gen Z who say the same about themselves, right? So you see a really big difference. Many of you, by the way, are Catholic organizations now thinking about what it means to have a new pope soon and to have the passing of Pope Francis. And so there'll be a lot of fundraising opportunities for you all there due to the Pope's important work. They're also less educated than subsequent generations. So 25% of boomers have a college degree, a bachelor's degree, excuse me, or more. Only 10% of the silent generation has a bachelor's degree or more, right? Pretty remarkable. 35% of Gen X, 40% of millennials. Gen Z is the first generation that is estimated to cross the 50% mark in terms of having a bachelor's degree. They're more married with more children. 67% of boomers and 83% of silents were married when they were ages 25 to 37. This figure dropped by 50 to 57% for Gen X and 46% for millennials, right? So you see a significant decline in marriage rates. There's a bunch of different reasons for that. 58% of boomers, women, were mothers between the ages of 20 to 35 compared to 48% of millennials. So you're seeing a drop and in some cases a delay in birth year. Let's let's dive in, right? So just before we get into asking, let's really sort of put ourselves in the mindset of being a 79-year-old American. So you were born in 1946. You show up, World War II has just ended. Your parents are relieved that World War II is over. At age 6, you're going to run duck and cover drills around nuclear war during the Cold War. If you've ever seen these videos, there's a little turtle, little cartoon, sort of showing people how to duck and cover in case an attack by the Soviets. Age 17, color TV is mainstream, and you can see the news as JFK is assassinated. Similar assassination, Dr. Martin Luther King at the age of 22. You're 22 years old, right? This is an incredible, think about those teenage years from 63 to 68. You're 23 when the first man walks on the moon, the Vietnam draft starts. You might have attended Woodstock. Age 28, Nixon resigns. The oil embargo is underway. So you have a pretty newsy 20s. Age 38, right? You're deeply in the workforce. You've got 25 years to go in the workforce when the first Apple Mac computer shows up. 47, right? Again, you're still working. This is an important component. And you have 20 years to go in your work life. AOL gains popularity, the internet goes mainstream. You're 55 when 9/11 happens and cell phones become ubiquitous. And you're 61 when your first Black president is elected and the first iPhone is released. 69 when gay marriage becomes the law of the land. At 74, you thought, well, maybe we can settle down. No, instead we have a pandemic, and you are at a higher risk, so you're mostly inside. 75, first female president or vice president. 77, we're starting to see the rise of AI, and so on and so forth. You're 79 years old today. So it has been a lifetime, as you can tell, some pretty astonishing things. By the way, those of you that are like 25 or 30, just imagine the level of happenings that will happen over your next 50 years. Okay, so let's talk about how older donors give now that we think about this. So we are living in an era of what we call peak 65. That's what demographers are calling peak 65. 2025 marks this period. It is a 4-year period, started in 2023, runs through 2027. It refers to a record number of Americans reaching retirement age. This is going to really change the economy, and not enough people are talking about it, but it's a big deal. Half of Americans entering peak 65 have already retired, and you'll see a lot more retiring in the next few years, right? So if you are worried about AI taking jobs, one counter trend is the amount of folks retiring. When we ask you what percentage of your donor base is 65 plus, look at how large it is. So 15% say more than 3/4 of our donors are over 65. But then 40% say between a half and 3/4. 28% say between 1/4 and a half, and only 16% say less than a quarter. So when we talk about these folks, these are our donors, right? So for 55% of you, it's more than half. And for the rest of you, it's still a significant chunk. And these are really, really important. When we ask you what percentage of your revenue comes from donors over 65, look at this. 21% says more than 3/4. Another 44%, that big pink chunk, says more than a half, right? Half to 3/4. So fully 65% of you, almost 2/3, get more than half of your revenue from these folks, which makes this incredibly important and why we're spending so much time on it. Boomers and silent generation continue to be the most charitable. Together, they make 69% of all charitable giving. They prefer giving to well-known, respected organizations, including many of you. 45% of boomers research an org before making a gift. 85% are loyal to specific causes or organizations. Ooh, Ron Frick says he'll be 64 tomorrow, so happy birthday, Ron. Still plugging away. Good work, Ron. How retirees think about charitable giving. 78% of pre-retirees, meaning just before, and retirees say that charitable giving plays a significant or pretty important role in their lives. 2/3 report they give mainly to the same organizations post-retirement, so locking these folks in now will be incredibly important. Nearly 1/4 of retirees are unaware of any tax-smart giving vehicles. This is a huge problem that we'll talk about later. Close to half think it's very or somewhat important to receive tax deductions for charitable giving. We're going to talk about how to message tax savings. This is really, really important. In tougher economic times, it becomes even more important to help people think about savvy giving. So stay tuned there. They're going online to give. According to Giving USA's 2024 Giving by Generation report, nearly 60% of boomers are giving online. In 2024, 27% of boomers reported using a smartphone to give an online gift. They also reported giving an average of 8.6 gifts online, more than any other generation, right? So lots of online giving here as well. They are now also moving to make major and planned gifts on the internet, right? So if your major giving program hasn't caught up, this is a very important point to take home. How do they engage online? They're more likely to own a smartphone or tablet than a desktop computer, although obviously most own desktop computers as well. They prefer features that make giving online seamless. Large fonts, fewer fields, fewer dropdowns will increase conversion rates, making it really clear. 3 in 5 boomers will give online, but minor frictions will turn them away. So we want to make sure we have gorgeous, clear websites, donation pages, etc. There you go. All right, so what is happening in 2025 that we need to know about that has changed older donor giving behavior compared to last year or the year previous? First, we continue to be in the great wealth transfer. We're very, very much at the start of it. This is a massive moment for older generations to plan their legacy. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for nonprofits. You could even think of it as a once-in-a-ever opportunity. There's an estimated $124 trillion will transition from boomers to younger generations, primarily Gen X and millennials, as well as charities. Many Americans say they're unprepared. This is the most important thing to happen to philanthropy in the next 5 years, bar none. It's incredibly important. Make sure that you as a nonprofit are prepared for this. Yahoo Finance recently published a study that says nearly half of wealthy families, not anybody, wealthy families do not have a will or trust. So there's a lot of work to do here around planned giving as well. Some of you might have seen this, but go take a look at the Chronicle Philanthropy's cover story in April cover story, and it really focuses on the great wealth transfer. Many of you talked about folks over 65 being an enormous portion of your giving. It is no surprise because you're seeing a drastic uptick in the percentage of the US population is over 65. In 1950, it was 8%. In 2050, it will be 3 times larger. I mean, really big shifts here across the board. And look at that gap between 2022 and 2030, right? That's what we're getting to right now. So that is exactly this retirement wave that we're talking about. They are still, particularly boomers, are the wealthiest generation in American history. They have lived through outstanding economic performance. It is not so much that older generations are inherently wealthier, but older generations have never had so much wealth before, objectively or in comparison to previous generations. According to a 2023 Global Wealth Report by Allianz, a unique historical situation, strong economic growth, affordable housing markets, and booming equity markets allowed baby boomers to build up what we call a handsome fortune. So how did this happen? Enormous growth in housing prices. Donors that you might not consider high net worth or rich own homes that are paid off and worth well more than $1 million. Nearly half of all boomers purchased their first home between 25 and 34. Those of you that are millennials or Gen Z are reading that and weeping because only 37% of millennials in the same age range do the same, and Gen Z will have an even harder time here. They bought homes for cheap that are now worth exponentially more. You can get a sense here of how much the wealth in this 55 to 69, which is that dark blue line at the top, and 70 and over. Look at that. I mean, you sort of have this general upward trend. Now, why is 40 to 54 going down? Well, it's because there are fewer 40 to 54-year-olds than there used to be, because remember, Gen X is smaller than when boomers were 40 to 54, right? So that's part of the reason that's going down. Again, home ownership, you see that boomers are still the most home ownership. Gen X is catching up, so that will be quick. Millennials on the rise. Gen Z just starting here, right? So interesting to see as well. You can also see, boy, housing prices went up a lot. If you bought that house in 1980, when someone born in 1949 was 31, I think. And so you can see how much wealth is accumulated in home prices. What else happened? Well, boy, since 1985, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 30x, 3,000%. So you can see if we started investing in the 80s, we are doing great. The S&P 500 is up 84% over the past 5 years alone. This, by the way, includes recent downturn. So there's a lot of equity A lot of wealth and equity is happening, even with recent news. But we're in this wallet paradox. So older donors have a ton of wealth, but they may feel less cash rich than ever before. Even though boomers in silence hold the majority of US wealth, many of them are feeling increased financial pressure in retirement. Healthcare, insurance, housing, and caregiving costs have all increased. And at the same time, inflation has also raised day-to-day living costs. Many retirees have fixed incomes from Social Security, pensions, investment withdrawals. So there's not like more money coming in, even if all of this wealth is accumulating as equities rise. When the market fluctuates, they often tighten their spending to preserve long-term stability. This means your older donor that typically budgets $50 a month might decide to reduce or skip their donation entirely. And because of inflation, those cash donations are less valuable to you than to your organization than they used to be. We're also still living under the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which took effect in 2018 from the first Trump administration. What did this do? It doubled the standard deduction, and it reduced the incentive, the tax incentive to give cash. And it also changed the state and local tax deductions. All it means is that people are no longer itemizing deductions, which makes it less valuable to give charitably from a tax perspective. All right, that's what's going on. Those are some big trends. Let's talk about what do we actually do about this, right? There are a couple of gift types that are going to be outstanding to ask for older donors. Best gift type 1. Many of you, but not enough of you, are routinely marketing qualified charitable distributions. So a lot of you have really upped your marketing lately. Great job. You're seeing the benefits of that already. If this is something you do and you have any specific advice for the rest of us, please add that to the chat. So what the heck is a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution? It is a gift out of an IRA account. Now, it's usually a traditional IRA account and not a Roth IRA account. They're often referred to as IRA charitable rollover gifts, but generally you can just say gifts from an IRA or qualified charitable distributions. They turn out to be donors' favorite gifts once they make it once because it's so beneficial. How do these work? Money comes directly from an IRA account to a 501c3 charity like yourselves. Donors must be 70 and a half years old, 70 and a half, not 70, not 71, 70 and a half. It is a weird quirk of legislation and can give up to $108,000 annually tax-free. This is up from 105 in 2024, and it goes up next year and so on and so forth, right? It's indexed to inflation. So unless you have deflation, the annual QCD cap will go up and up. Great gifts, $108,000, potential, really great. Why are they so great? Well, when you have an IRA and you turn a certain age, it's about 73 now, you have to take distributions every year, whether you like it or not, right? So as of 2023, absolutely mandatory. The exact amount changes year to year. It's based on life expectancy and how much is in your accounts. It is the account holder's responsibility to calculate their RMD. Now, so why are these so great for older donors? Why are these so excellent? Well, money in an IRA is pre-tax. We've never paid income tax on that money. If you have a 401k, it's very similar to that as well. This money will always be taxed, even if the donor passes away, even if the donor is under the estate tax threshold and they pass away. Post-tax money is much more valuable to the donor. We want to conserve that. And so individuals across all income levels own IRAs. It is one of the few giving vehicles that are more popular for men than women. Why is that? Because who had white-collar jobs in the early 70s and started investing all this, right? It tends to be more men than women. That's obviously evened out over the past decades. Thousands of boomers become eligible to make QCDs every single day. And it's better than cash because it helps you meet your RMD. It helps you save on taxes. So a big win across the board. Now, why are they great for nonprofits? Isn't it easier to just take cash? Nope. Actually, when you get a QCD, it's just in the form of cash, so it's very easy. But it also results in much larger gifts from exactly the same donors. This is the really big deal. An average QCD gift is $3,800. An average cash gift is about $100. The number one way you can hit your goals is get more money from the same donors. The number one way you can get more money from the same donors is change the way they give. The number one way you can change the way they give is get them to give asset-based gifts like QCDs or donor advised funds or stock gifts instead of giving cash. It is better for everybody, especially for small dollar donors whose financial goals are changing as they enter retirement and are looking to save on taxes. We asked you in the past 5 years, has your nonprofit seen an increase in QCDs? 18% said a big increase, 52% said a mild increase, 34% said no change, no one said a decrease, right? So we're starting to see a big leap here across the board. Oops, let's go back to that slideshow. Great. I'm going to count that everyone can see my screen. Can I get a quick yes in the chat? Great, thanks everybody. So we've seen an increase in QCDs, right? Second gift type, stock gifts. Boomers own more stock than any generation ever. 63% of stock owners are over 65. This is a big deal, right? So all these equity markets that are growing and growing and growing, little dip at the end, but generally just enormous compared to where they used to be. These folks are all over 65. So if you're serious about, if you have these donors, and it looks like you do, got to get serious about stock gifts. They own most of the wealth in the United States and most of the stock. And after decades of investing, many don't just have lots of assets. They have assets with truly massive unrealized gains. Now, that's really good news, but it also comes with big capital gains taxes when you have massive unrealized gains. So stocks present a win-win opportunity for donors and nonprofits. Donors who give stock save on two types of taxes. When it's given directly to charity, the donor avoids all the capital gains. They also avoid state income tax on capital gains, which is true in many of the places that y'all are from. They also receive a federal income tax deduction for the full present value of the stock. This, by the way, presumes that stock has been owned at least a year, but of course, these folks are over 65. These assets have been held for a long time, sometimes a state deduction as well. For older donors, managing taxable events in retirement, this can be enormous savings. Stock donations lead to larger gifts than cash without increasing out-of-pocket costs, saving you money on taxes, avoiding capital gains. Huge win. Organizations who understand tax savings and donors that understand tax savings lead to this repeat cycle of stock donations again and again. Again, your average cash donation is $100. We're not mad about that. But the average stock gift through the FreeWill tools, which is the data that we have access to, is $11,500. So one stock gift equals 115 cash donations. This is a big win. Step 3, plan gifts, best gift plan gifts. So any gift made of a part of a donor's overall estate plans. Plan gifts can be funded with a variety of assets, cash, special accounts, equities, homes. They're often the largest gifts of a donor's lifetime. They're often larger than all giving that they've ever done combined times 3. I mean, really big gifts here. It is a great option as older donors are making decisions about their legacy. One thing to note about boomers and even silent generation is they have fewer children than previous generations, and folks who are never married and no kids tend to be the most valuable plan giving donors. We asked you again, in the past 5 years, has your organization seen an increase in planned gift commitments from older donors? 15%, huge increase. 48%, mild increase. 37%, no change. Nobody, decrease. Planned giving was the only type of giving that grew beyond inflation last year. So this is a really big deal. Okay, so we sort of understand where our donors are, right? The lives they've lived, pretty exciting lives. We've talked about the best types of gifts you can get from these folks. Now let's talk about a couple of key steps before we get to some questions at the end. Tip 1, start qualified charitable distribution outreach ASAP. The fastest and most effective way to increase giving levels, again, is to change the way they give. This requires active promotion from you. Donors don't know that when they wake up on their 70th birthday, that now they're eligible for QCDs. This is up to you. Highlight QCDs in every one-on-one convo with donors over 70. If you have half of your donors are over 70, it's a great thing to include in every email. When we ask you how well you think your donors understand QCDs, well, only about half of you say a little bit, right? So they're not strangers to it. 7% say very well, right? But only 11% say not at all. What this means is a gentle nudge will go a long way. And so as we're doing our marketing, keep nudging QCDs. It's really important that we do this throughout the year. Now, why is it so important that we do it throughout the year and not just at end of year giving? I mean, if we only had one chance to promote stock giving, end of year is a great idea. So why would it be the case that we want to do QCDs early and throughout the year? Anyone have any guesses before we reveal? Barbara says birthdays, close. Krista, taxes. Okay, great. Sharon Morgan. Shout out Sharon Morgan. Because if they have a required minimum distribution, meaning that money they have to take out every year, and they want to reach that, well, if they can take that money out at any point in the year. So if they've already taken it out, they might be less inclined to make a qualified charitable distribution. So doing it early and frequently is a great move. Now, most giving still happens at end of year. But if you wait until then to educate donors about giving, you'll miss out. And in fact, the research bears this out. Our 2021 QCD report found that partners who promoted QCDs 3 times or more saw a huge boost in giving at end of year. So this early education actually changes the way that people give down the road. Tip 2, keep asking for stock gifts. Hey, the market's up 2% today. Yesterday it was down 2%. Don't worry about the market headlines. Now is not the time to pause stock giving research. Instead of holding back, ask yourself, how can we make stock giving easier and more compelling for our donors? Stock giving is a tax-savvy way to give, right? We already talked about why, so we won't go through this again, but it's incredibly important. Also, quick reminder, stock market up 88% over the last 5 years, 3,000% over the last 40. And so there's a lot of appreciated assets out there. Bonus points if you make it easy to give stock online, no broker phone calls or paperwork. Donors can give in just a few clicks. It's also, if they're calling in nights or weekends, they can still make these gifts as opposed to waiting on a phone call back. Tip 3, definitely have a plan for August. So August is National Make-A-Will Month. It is an incredible opportunity to encourage planned giving. Remember that half of wealthy families, not anybody, wealthy families don't have a will or trust, even more of middle-class families as well. August is great for 2 reasons. One, it's an easy time to get on the communications calendar. So maybe you're a development director, team of 1. Well, you're probably not jamming things into August, so you have a space there. Maybe you run planned giving at a medium-sized organization. In December, you're going to have to elbow out the major giving folks and the small dollar giving folks to get on the calendar. August is a great chance. It drives an enormous amount of giving. 2 other reasons. One, it's a time when a lot of people are with their family for these discussions. 2, a lot of people have the time to do it. FreeWill's public site raised more than $350 million in bequest commitments for nonprofits last August alone. Take a look at these numbers, right? So this is some data on FreeWill giving month by month. Look at that giant temple of goodness, right, in August, right? That's Make-A-Will month. It really, really works. So very cool stuff. Bequests are the largest gift a donor is going to make in their lifetime. The average gift we see is $46,000. Some are multi-millions. Many of you say things like, I got a $200,000 request from someone I never even heard from in their lifetime. A lot of these are surprise gifts, great things to have. Try pairing planned giving outreach with a way to take action. Some options you may consider. So you can use an online resource like FreeWill. You can offer a will-making kit. You can create a list of local estate planning attorneys. It's very important that you do this. Don't have to work with us, but it's an incredibly important moment to take advantage of. We have made a toolkit specifically for Make-A-Will Month. Thank you to our marketing team for putting that together. And so we'll include that in the follow-up email. Just make sure you fill out the survey so you can get that as well. Tip 4, the permanent giving guide is worth its weight in gold, even with the price of gold at record highs. So a permanent giving guide serves as an educational letter that explains the benefits of non-cash giving. It includes language that lets them know the guide is useful for any of your giving and not just giving to your organization. This will make them hold on to it for years and years and years. You can make it for free. using our free AI tool, willy.freewill.com. FreeWill customers also have a sort of special extra designed portion they can use in your portal. If you're familiar with Portal, you know where to find it. In the guide, ask donors to hold onto your letter. Add in big letters. Please keep this message for your future reference. Again, you can find this in your marketing library if you like. Bonus. So direct mail still tends to be useful, but it's particularly useful for major donors or people you want to make planned gifts. Direct mail, one of the most effective channels for older donors, and premium print feels like a gift and not just another appeal. This is ideal for personal letters, legacy brochures, or impact reports, right? So on top of any sort of mass mailings you do as well, save this one tip we're about to show you for your highest capacity donors to spark joy and build trust. I'm about to show you the best use of 2 cents that you can ever have as a charity. So there is a gentleman named Josh Alcorn. He does a bunch of work in direct mail. He also helps lead the nonprofit storytelling conference. He's been a guest here a couple times. He's just a delight, as well as being a brilliant human being. And one of my favorite tips from Josh is that paper clips are the best 2 cents you can spend. So if you're sending an annual report, a brochure, or anything else, add a personal note and just paper clip it to the materials. Something about paper clips adds texture and importance to the mail at almost no cost. It just creates this sort of very personalized, rich experience. It's fascinating. And I got one of these from a nonprofit a few weeks ago, and I thought, wow, Josh, you are 100% right. It's sort of, you feel it in the envelope, and then you open it, and wow. It is the smallest thing you can do for the most value. It's really interesting to watch it play out. So thank you, Josh. Hope to have Josh back on soon for another session on direct mail. Josh is probably the best direct mail writer I've ever encountered, and he's got a bunch of great tips. So we'll get Josh back on soon if there's demand for it. Tip 5. Every webinar we get a lot of questions, especially navigating this present moment, that says, how do I deal with politics, right? My donor base isn't monolithic. Maybe it leans conservative or leans liberal, but it's not everybody. And my board might not be monolithic. And how do I talk about this, especially if there's a funding freeze or something happening to us that is political in nature? And the thing to do here is to go light on politics, but heavy on moral clarity. So when we went back through that entire life of older donors, right? They've lived through extraordinary major social and political upheaval over the decades. You might hear from some of them that they're frustrated by the political noise. It does not mean they're disengaged, and it does not mean they don't have very strong values, right? They still deeply care about helping your organization and its work. So frame your cause as a steady force for good in a complicated world. Emphasize common values, generosity, community, service. Even in a time of change, your nonprofit acts as a steady presence in your donors' lives, as well as obviously the folks that you're serving. Whenever you're possible, frame your cause as the right thing to do, right? As the years pass, it is always the right thing to do to feed folks in our community, right? To shelter folks if necessary, to do whatever international relief work you do, whatever it may be. Really think about the moral clarity behind you. People really want to find those moments of extreme moral clarity in a confusing world. Anchoring your message in the stability of your mission, the track record of your organization, and the strong values that underlie them. This is a really good way to generate really enormous giving. And again, just pair it with some of those ways to give that will get you much larger gifts. Okay, so we're going to wrap there. I'm going to share a couple of things. My colleague Phoebe, who is outstanding, has just dropped a survey in the chat. So it should be, if you click on the chat, I know some of you minimize it because there's so much going on. Some of you find it incredibly valuable, which is why we keep it on. But there is a link in the chat right now. There will be a couple of things in there, right? So if you fill it out, the survey, we will get you the Make a Will Month toolkit. We will also give away this delightful book by Oliver Burkeman called Time Management for Mortals. I read it about 2 years ago, loved it. Great to have some clarity in the busyness of the day-to-day. So if you'd like a version of this, a copy of this book, make a note in the survey for a chance to get it. Next, on Thursday at noon Eastern, in 47 hours from now, we are going to do a walkthrough of Grant Assistant, which a lot of you have been asking about. Grant Assistant is an AI tool for those of you that are looking for grants or writing grants. I just got off the phone with the two founders of Grant Assistant right before this call. Right now, 1,000 grant opportunities are being added per week that you can use AI to search through and surface the best opportunities for you. It is also the case that it will help you write these grant opportunities, often much better than people say they would do by themselves, and obviously much faster. It's a truly extraordinary tool. People talk about sufficiently advanced technology being indistinguishable from magic, and this is very close. So I would love it if there's a note in the survey as well where you can sign up for this, but come hang out with us. Probably about half an hour on Thursday, very informal, but come hang out with us and check it out. Feel free to bring other folks from your organization. It is astonishingly cool, and I can't wait to show it to you if you haven't seen it already. It's perfect for things like foundation grants, corporate grants, government contracts, et cetera. We'll walk through all of this in a much greater depth on Thursday. Last thing on Grant Assistant before we hop off. The folks that have used this say that it saves a ton of time, and they already won a $30,000 grant in their first month using it. So big win there, and shout out to Beth at Pets for Patriots for doing that as well. Okay, other announcements before we get to some questions. On Thursday, May 1st, our dear friend, my dear friend, Dr. Russell James. Some of you know Russell. Russell is a professor at Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas. Most of you have never been to Lubbock. It is deep in West Texas, but it is a fun place. This is a specific session. Dr. James has a new book out on Christian and faith-based fundraising. And so this is more specific than many of the other sessions we're doing, but we love Dr. James, and we figured we'd get him to talk about his new book and what it means for faith-based organizations. So you're welcome to come as a non-faith-based organization, but it's going to be entirely focused on faith-based organizations. So make a note in the webinar, in the survey if you want to join that. That is next Thursday at noon Eastern. So Dr. J will be coming to that. He's awesome. Love learning from him. Okay. Other things. Next webinar is in 2 weeks on Tuesday, May 6th, about increasing donor trust in your nonprofit in 2025. And we're joined by Laura Andes of Charity Navigator. So Laura from Charity Navigator will talk through a bunch of ways to make your profile on Charity Navigator great, help you be found by donors who are interested in your cause but might not know about your charity. And that will be super interesting. I will not actually be on that webinar. I am going to be in South Africa then, hanging out with my parents, because I have been bothering them for years to do the stuff that's on their bucket list, and they refuse to, and they are in the older donor category. They are turning 69 and 68 this year, I think. I have to double check that. I hope they're not watching. And so we're going to go on a safari together. So if anyone has any great tips for South Africa, shoot me an email. And I would love your tips. We're going to Cape Town, and then we're going to go up to Kruger. So I won't be here. Anyway, sorry, long way of saying I'm not going to be on the May 6th webinar, but we have a special guest host from FreeWill alongside Laura from Charity Navigator, and it's going to be great. And I hope it's not even better than the ones I host, but it might be. So enjoy it. So those are some things that are happening. If you need anything at all, email me at patrick@freewill.com or connect with me on LinkedIn. And we're going to spend a few minutes probably taking 3 or 4 questions. So great question. Patricia had a question about the free minute. Great question. When I said that ChatGPT version 3 is out, Patricia, I misspoke. The new version that is out from OpenAI is called O3. Now, ChatGPT has said, ChatGPT and OpenAI have said that they do a miserable job of naming their models, and that is correct. O3 is an incredibly advanced AI. It's very much worth playing around with if you haven't done it already. It's incredibly impressive. And AI is advancing at an astronomical rate and will do wonderful things for fundraising over the next 2 years. And we will keep you updated on that. So we won't go into that as well. Um, Marcy, great question. How do you frame QCDs and RMDs in the current volatile market without appearing tone deaf? So first of all, don't stress about the market, because what happens is you make a plan, the market's up or down, and you don't know what the market's going to be doing in 3 days. So let's not presume you know what's up. Second, in times of market volatility or economic downturns, people are looking to be more savvy with their money. And all of these non-cash gifts are far savvier to give than straight old-fashioned cash. And so you can position it as saying, we know a lot of people are thinking about how to be smart with their money. Here are some tax advantage ways to give. And then you can use that language, right? So it feels like a now more than ever moment for this as well. Good questions. Sarah asks about best approach for younger donors. Sarah, we'll do another session on younger donors as well. Tiffany says, how do we tell the age of our donors? Is there a database? So many of you will have some form of age data, especially if you're a college or a hospital or something like that. Many of you won't. Now, one thing to know is that most donors, especially major donors, are older. It's just the way it is. So you can assume that even if we don't know who, we know that many of these folks are in our database. And so you may want to include a note about QCDs as an option and just note, hey, this is eligible if you're over 70 and a half. In your general emails, other people will give in different ways as well. In your major donor conversations, you're likely to have some sense of how old people are, even if you're within a few years. So a lot of great questions there. We'll pause there. We'll give everyone a chance. Actually, I just want to make a quick shout out to a point that Gabriella made. So Gabriella says you can run your donor base against generational first names. It gives you a good idea. So here's an idea, right? Take your donor base or take a random sampling of your donor base, even if it's just 500 names. It can be first names only, so you don't have to divulge any private information. Run it through ChatGPT and have them guess the birth year based on first names, and it will give you a good sense of that as well. So good option as well. Janelle says you can also look at how long they've been giving. Anyone giving more than 20 years is likely to be over 50. Great point, Janelle. So lots of thoughtful stuff. I didn't get to read the whole chat as we did this, but a lot of smart people contributing. So we really, really appreciate you. All right, so we're going to pause there, give everyone a couple minutes before their next event or meeting. A couple things to wrap up on. One, thank you so much for coming. It means a lot to us that we're able to borrow an hour of your time to help think through how the world is changing and what we ought to do about it. Two, just thank you to all of your organizations who are not here for all the important work you do. Three, happy Easter to those that just celebrated. And four, big shout out to Phoebe, Robert, Alicia, Dina, some other folks that helped out on this. As you can probably tell, there is a ton of work that goes into this, and a lot of it is not done by me. So we're very grateful, as always, to that team and appreciate all of you. I'm sure that I've left somebody out in that. Thank you. But just know that we're grateful anyway. Have a wonderful week. I know it's full-blown spring in a lot of places where you all are, and I hope you get outside and enjoy all the time. So take care and talk to you all soon.